The President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. We would like to now hand over to the prosecution to continue putting questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Witness, can you tell us who within Division 801 had the power to decide on the fate of enemies who had been identified in the zone in which Division 801 was operating?
Response. I'm afraid I don't know about this.
Thank you. Maybe this was a bit convoluted. Let me get back to this later. But can you tell us why the Re-Education Center or the Okansen Security Center was created within Division 801?
Response. I do not know much about this. Discussion could have been made among the committee of the division because at that time the situation at the border was chaotic and a lot of people in the army were not properly disciplined, and for that reason at each regiment they had to make sure that a system was in place to discipline those people who were free and ill-disciplined. Each division had to properly manage this, and that's why a center was set up so that the bad elements, irregular elements, could be contained and detained at the center.
Thank you. You also said in your first written record of interview with the investigating judges in document E3405 at answer 6, you said that this Kanseng Center was open when the enemies from within were emerging throughout the entire country. End of quote. What does this mean exactly? When you speak about these enemies from within developing throughout the entire country, what do you mean by this?
Response. As I already mentioned, that within the unit, people had been removed. People who were holding the ranks of the colonel and other senior people had to be removed, and security concern security was a part of a primary concern, and enemy could take the advantage of this opportunity to make the situation worse. That's why the center was set up.
Thank you. Do you remember the period or approximately when this center opened and when you took on your duties as head of this center?
Response. It was around late 1976 when it was established, when I was in control of the center for about 2 years.
Thank you. Now, regarding the servicemen who were sent to Okan Seng, who sent them there? Did the center have the power to arrest people, or were decisions taken at the division level to send these servicemen to Okan Seng?
Response. People were arrested and sent to my office or center through the regiment, and the decision made by the secretary of a division. Reports could have been filed before people were sent gradually to the center, the correction center.
Thank you. You would take in prisoners up to which rank at Okan Seng? Were there people, for example, of a certain rank who were never sent to Okan Seng because they were too senior? Can you tell us if there was a distinction made, and which kind of military personnel would be sent to Okan Seng?
Response. It was the right and my capacity, because I was holding the rank equivalent to the lieutenant, and for that reason people who were holding the rank of captain or major would not be subjected to be sent to this center. We received people who were the deputy chairman of the party branch. So these are the people who were sent there.
Did you receive information back then on the location where high-ranking military personnel was sent to, if they were not sent to your center? Did you receive any information regarding the captains or the colonels who might have been arrested back then?
Response. Those people could have been sent to only one location in Phnom Penh. I learned that these people who disappeared came to Phnom Penh for study purposes. Some came to Phnom Penh through by car or by helicopters.
Thank you. And how did you learn of this? Was this something that was discussed within Division 801, or was this something that was said to you during a meeting? Did Sosarun speak about this at one moment or the other?
Response: they didn't tell us, but as you know, this information could not be hidden for all along, because people could exchange during conversation, because people noted the disappearance of other colleagues, so we kept asking one another what happened to them. Then we learned about this information. The president
Thank you. So we're going to try to understand precisely the context, the security context in the Northeast Zone when the center was created. And we're also going to try to understand when exactly this center was created. And I'm going to show to the witness and display on the screen document E3/1164. Document E3/1164. And this is a report that was sent on 25 November 1976 by Arun from the Party Committee of Division 801 to Uncle 89. And with your leave, Mr. President, I would like to read 3 relevant excerpts of this document.
Response: you may proceed. Rather, the President, you may proceed.
Alors, le premier passage se trouve sous le titre 2.
The first segment is under heading 2 on the second page in Khmer 0052325. I'm sorry, it's on page 3. Page 3 in all 3 languages. So the report speaks about the enemies and the enemy networks within Division 801, and in particular about Regiment 83. And on page 3, the following is said, and I quote, "All of this information comes from the confessions of the soldiers we arrested in Unit 83, end of quote." And the second segment is under heading 4 of this document, and it's called A Certain Number of Priority Measures. And in Khmer, it's on page 000-52327. 52327, French 00532754. English 00516711. So 00516711. And 5 measures are mentioned. Measures recommended by Arun. First, anyone who is suspicious of being an enemy must absolutely be arrested. 2, regarding those that were denounced by the enemies, we must examine the documents and ask for them to be arrested for the moment. 3, to impose a measure to remove and put into or who violate discipline and who after re-education do not change their behavior should be cast aside in order to be followed carefully. And 4th point, any company or squad cadres who are inactive, deceitful, or lazy must absolutely be removed. And 5, those who are affiliated to political tendencies should be arrested one after the other. A little bit further, those who are good must be left alone, and those who are against or those who are not active should be removed and detained. basically those violating discipline and after 3 or 4 episodes of re-education do not change their behavior should be arrested or removed from the unit. End of quote, free translation regarding these measures. And finally, this report from Rune to Uncle 89 states the following. On the very last page, I believe it's the last paragraph. This is a report of Committee 801 regarding enemy activities and measures as stated above, and we request that Uncle make remarks and comments. We look forward to receiving the party's recommendations. End of quote. So my first question here, regarding the first excerpt that I read out, it was a question of soldiers who were arrested in Unit 83. And I'd like to remind you that this report dates back to November 25th, 1976. So I would like to know if the confessions of the soldiers of Unit 83 described here, whether these confessions were gathered at Okanseng or not.
The President, Mr. Witness, please hold on. Counsel for Mr. Nunchia, you may now proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm not quite sure how this line of questioning fits within the scope as defined and set by the court. We're talking about the security center, and the questions don't seem to fit in the extent and the scope that you have set. So I object to the question.
Mr. President, regarding the Okanseng Re-Education Center, I don't want to speak in detail about the detention conditions because this is not part of the context of this trial. However, what I want to know, what we should be focusing on, is that as a unit, part of Division 801, I'd like to understand how this unit was part of the organization of this division. And second of all, we're going to focus on the communication that took place between the Re-Education Center and the higher ranks. And third of all, we would like to focus on the policies regarding enemies. And as far as knowing who had, and we'd like to focus on who had the power to decide on the enemy's fate. Should they be released? Should they be executed? Should they be detained? And who had that power within Division 801 and who possibly had that power in Phnom Penh? All of these topics that are linked to the Okanseng Re-Education Center, which the witness was the head of, seem important to me. And in the same way, there's a certain amount of information that the witness is liable to give to us because of his duties in the past as head of this re-education center, who would closely follow what was said by the detainees there. So this is my answer, and therefore I would like my question to be answered by the witness.
The President, the objection is not sustained. The question is not deeply relevant to the correction center of Okanseng. It's relevant rather to the military structure. Mr. Witness, please respond to the question if you still remember. Response. I have no answer to this. The situation he mentioned was consistent, though, but I just do not think I am in the capacity to shed any light on this.
Thank you. So I read out 5 measures that were proposed by Run to Bong 89. And let me remind these quickly. Those suspected of being enemies should be arrested. Those who have been denounced by enemies should also be arrested. While we examined the documents and we spoke about the arrest of those who violated discipline, or rather to follow carefully those who violated discipline, and we also said that the cadres of inactive sections or cadres who are lazy should be removed, and those who had political leaning should also be removed. So within Division 801, were these 5 measures sent to the cadres of Division 801, and were they implemented?
Response. I think the measures you quoted were consistent to those applied at different units, but that's not the case in my unit.
And as the head of the Okansang Re-Education Center, did the people who were sent to you correspond to the categories of enemies or of people who did not behave properly that were mentioned in the report?
Response. I'm afraid I do not understand about this task because I were to receive people who had been sent to me.
Thank you. Now I'm going to speak about the communication between the Okansang Center and Division 801. As the head of the center, to whom did you have to report within Division 801?
Response. There were different means of report concerning economy and other affairs. 06 used to be in charge of this section, and later on he did not ask me to report things to him, and he asked me to report directly to the commander of the division.
And when you speak about 06, are you referring to a specific person or to Unit 806? I didn't understand your answer clearly. Can you be more specific, please?
Response. In the 806, there were 3 battalions, and each battalion had each secretary or head, and we have to report to different to the head of the battalion. And with regard to the report that we obtained from the confessions, for example, we did not report to or copy to these head of the battalions, but to the division commander instead.
Thank you. Now, regarding the reports you would send about the confessions, how often would you send these reports to the division commander, Sun Sarun?
I cannot recall such a detail. It's been so long already. And I believe it depends on the urgency of the matter. If it's urgent, then it would be more frequent. Merci. Est-ce que vous
Thank you. Can you provide us some detail about the content of these reports on the confessions? What was the purpose of sending these reports to the division commanders? Why were these reports useful to the division commander?
It was for him to make the decision whether the case was involved greatly in politics, or whether it became a systematic issue, or whether it was an isolated incident, and whether the person shall be arrested or disciplinary actions shall be taken for that particular individual. That was the nature of the report. Et plus précisément,
And to be more specific, what is the nature of decisions taken or disclosed by So Sarun? Were these decisions related to liberation or the need to carry out further investigations on persons, or were these decisions with regard to executions?
it is difficult to conclude regarding this matter because I myself did not receive any instruction for the execution of anyone, because their offense was not of a criminal nature. It could be isolated, it could have been implicated, and it was not of a criminal nature. So for that kind of offense, it would be difficult to make an immediate decision regarding the execution. And later, more and more people had been sent, and then there needed to be a sort of a study and review of the process. So there was no instruction from him for executing anyone, or that because of them being committed treason or not. Merci, je vais revenir sur...
Thank you. I will revisit this point later. In the first interview report, E3/405, that is the interview granted to tribunal investigators. In answer to question number 8, this is what you stated. Among the errors made by military prisoners, there was, on the one hand, people who they had to do with confessions done by the soldiers themselves or those who had been summoned to appear according to confessions, and those who were implicated in confessions given in Phnom Penh. Can you tell us exactly how confessions obtained in Phnom Penh were communicated to you? And can you also tell us whether those confessions were sent to you in different ways?
Il s'agit bien des aveux.
Be more specific. I am talking of confessions obtained in Phnom Penh. How were they communicated to your center?
I received the confessions, and in fact, usually through a message from 05's office. It would be the names of people who had been implicated in a confession of this person or that person. And on another instance, a person named No, coming from the general staff, coming down to the location, to my location for a while, asking about the people who were implicated and those people who were within Division 801.
Merci. D'abord une précision.
Thank you. Let me clarify something. You stated that most of the confessions were received via Office 805. Is this a reference to, or rather, 05, I beg your pardon, not 805. Is this a reference to Sosarun and the code name 05?
Indeed, it was the code name for Sosarun.
Est-ce qu'il est arrivé que...
Did it happen that the messenger from Tas Sarun came and gave you the confessions, or the confessions were conveyed to you in a different manner? I want this to be very clear because I didn't quite understand it.
Sometimes it was hand-delivered, and some other times I was called to receive the confessions from his place.
Est-ce qu'il y avait...
Were there confessions obtained in Phnom Penh that were sent to you because they were sent with the persons who came to your center? Did such a thing happen?
Yes.
Et savez-vous comment...
And do you know how South Sarun himself received confessions from Phnom Penh? Were you able to gather any information on this subject as to how he obtained confessions from Phnom Penh?
He had all kinds of radio communication at his disposal.
Merci. Vous avez...
Thank you. You talked about No from the military headquarters. I want you to clarify this matter as well. Did that person bring confessions from Phnom Penh?
Yes, he brought along some documents, and he brought along those documents as those documents were related to the work at my place.
Est-ce que les aveux que vous avez vus en provenance de Phnom Penh
Now, the confessions you received from, or that came from Phnom Penh, were they from soldiers in Division 801 or from cadres from the Northeast Zone?
They all came from Division 801, as some people had been removed.
Est-ce que vous vous souvenez
Do you recall any of the names of some of those persons or the positions they held when they gave the confessions in Phnom Penh?
No, I cannot recall any of the names. I forget them all. It's been a long time already.
Est-ce que Sao Sarun vous a donné des instructions
Did Sao Sarun give you specific instructions regarding the contents of confessions received from Phnom Penh? That is, regarding what you had to do after receiving those confessions. What was the purpose of sending those confessions to you?
Yes, he did tell me to be vigilant in following up on the works. How far did the matter go, for instance? And if the matter was serious, of a systematic nature, then further measures and actions needed to be taken.
Est-ce que Sao Sarun vous a
Did Sao Sarun ask you to carry out investigations regarding those detained in your center regarding facts contained in the confessions that were sent from Phnom Penh?
In some instances, yes, as some had been implicated. However, they were not of a serious nature, but they were afraid, then they attempted to escape, then they were recaptured.
Merci.
Thank you. Witness, please tell me whether you know a person called Keo Sarun alias Sen within Division 801.
I only knew Kao Sarun, but I did not know whether it was the same as Kao Sarun alias saying. He was the one that I knew was the commander of Regiment 81.
Est-ce qu'il faisait partie également du
Was he also a member of the 801 committee as commander of Regiment 81?
He was the commander of Regiment 81.
Est-ce que vous savez ce qui lui est arrivé
Do you know what became of him? occupy that position throughout the period of democratic Kampuchea up to 1979? Or do you know what became of him?
Later, he became a member of Division 801, that is toward the end of the regime. And after a while, he was called for a study session in Phnom Penh, and he disappeared.
Dans votre troisième procès-verbal de...
In your third interview record, E3407, you stated that Keel Sarun disappeared in 1977 when he was called to report Phnom Penh. Do you confirm the year 1977 as the year in which Mr. Keel Sarun was arrested?
Yes, that is correct.
Je voudrais, Monsieur le Président...
Mr. President, I would like to show the witness and to have placed on the screen document D108/26.86. It is a list of S-21 prisoners titled Name of Prisoners Smashed on the 9th of December 1977. In fact, it is one of the titles in the document. The page that I would like to have placed on the screen in Khmer, it is 0000 9298. That is quadruple 09298. In English, it is 0097, so or rather 87 3622, and it is on page 501. On this list, I would like to draw the witness's attention to numbers 183 and 191 of the second document I would like to show him. Thank you.
President, yes, you may proceed.
Voilà, Monsieur le témoin, c'est bien la...
Very well, witness. It is the second page, highlighted in blue. You can see the different numbers. I hope you do not mistake the lines. There is no French ERN for this document. May I request you to tell us whether number 189, Keo Saron alias Singh, member of Division 801, who went into S-21 in May 1977, is that indeed the Keo Saron we have just referred to?
Yes, that is the name.
Alors, sur la même page...
Now, on the same page, the number between 183 and 191, there are other names of cadres of Division 801. Do you know some of these names, the names that feature on this list?
It was Pao Som On, Tuj Son, I only knew these three, that is including Kai Wasarun.
Merci. Je voudrais...
Thank you, Mr. President. With your leave, I would like to show another document referring to Keo Sarun, and it is document D267/D.2. It is Keur Sarun's confession given at S21. Witness. By way of an introduction, in your interview before the co-investigating judges, you said that you took note of certain confessions. I would like to show you one of the pages of this confession in Khmer. In Khmer is 0041 4996, and in English it is 0078 3155. May I request you to look at the annotations on this page. Mr. President, may I also request your leave to have this page placed on the screen?
Yes, you may proceed.
Je vais lire l'annotation de...
I'll read the annotation signed by Dutch to respected brother, dated the 5th of June 1977. I will read it in English because there is no French translation of this page, I believe. And may I request the interpreters, therefore, to interpret from English instead of from French.
Asked about the situation in the unit of Keur Sarun, he reported that there were up to 58 embedded in his traitorous network in Division 801, some of whom were Chaum, Lem, Nat, Tan, Keur Narong alias Bao, who have already been removed to the base. End of quote. Monsieur le témoin, la première question.
Witness, my first question to you, even though this annotation is in black and white and not in red, the question is, do you recognize these handwritten annotations?
No, I cannot recognize the handwriting, but I may know the person by the name of Chaum who had been removed.
Et quelle était la fonction de ce
What was the duty of this person called Cham in Division 801?
Chaum was in charge of a battalion.
Est-ce que ce dénommé Chaum
Is this person called Cham one of those detained at the Ok Anseng Center? Ok Anseng Center.
No, he was not, because he had been sent.
Quand vous dites qu'il avait été envoyé,
When you say that he was sent or he had been sent, do you mean that he was sent to Phnom Penh? Did he disappear?
Yes, we heard that he had been sent to Phnom Penh and he never returned to the office again.
lorsque vous avez entendu qu'un certain nombre
When you heard that a number of cadre, you mentioned Taya in the zone, now you've mentioned Cham, and kill Sarun. When they were called to Phnom Penh, did you never receive any information regarding the entity in Phnom Penh that had summoned them to go to Phnom Penh?
I did not know the details of this matter. It was based on their own change of command, that is, the instructions from the divisional commander.
Merci.
Thank you. I have a few questions regarding instructions you may have received as the director of the Ok Kan Seng Re-Education Center. Did South Sarun send you any instructions regarding a distinction that had to be made between persons who had committed minor offenses and persons who had to be monitored closely?
Yes, he did send that document to me. If the instructions were, if the nature of the offense could be reduced, otherwise I had to consider that depending on the severity of the offense.
Merci. Vous nous avez...
Thank you. You told us a while ago that you did not give details on executions. You said that among those who were detained, some were sent for execution. Was it the center itself that sent people for execution, or other members of Division 801 who sent those persons to be executed when you were the director of the center?
Regarding the execution, I myself never issued any orders for the execution because they were not criminals. Even if those people who committed a serious offense and were shackled, since we did not have a complete document on those people. However, some of them caused an injury to one of my guards. They were into a fight, and as a result, one died. And in the second instance, one person who was shackled escaped. That person was chased and resulted in his death. But there was no instance at all of where people were released to work outside and were later being executed. Separately, regarding the group of 6 people, I received instructions from Sosarun for them to be executed.
Vous avez dit...
In the first interview, E3/405, in answer to question number 16, you stated, free translation, most executions of prisoners who were not able to correct took place in late 1978. Apart from the 6 persons you have just referred to, were there other persons who were received at the center and were subsequently executed?
As I stated earlier, there were 3 other people. Due to their reactions and the harm they caused to one of my guards. Besides that, no one else had been sent for execution.
En tant que directeur du centre,
As director of the center, one of your duties was to obtain confessions from detainees. Did you receive orders from the upper echelons of Division 801 regarding the need to resort to torturing persons who refused to make confessions?
President Witness Wade, Defense Counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I object to this line of questioning because it doesn't fall within the scope. It's not about structure anymore. It's about actual executions within the center. So I think that is outside of the scope of this trial.
merci, je vais répondre, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you. Let me respond, Mr. President. My question was whether any orders were issued by the upper echelons of Division 801. I'm talking about internal communications in that division. What I want to know is whether such orders were issued and whether there were communications between Division 801 and the center. I think that in the final analysis, since this deals with communications, this question is acceptable, Mr. President.
President, the co-prosecutor, please try to rephrase your question, and the nature of your question shall be the one of the nature of the communication, that is the structure, and not focused on the functioning of the Haut Conseil Center.
Thank you. I would like to ask you a question about the possible release of detainees. Did you have the power to decide that they would be released, or was that decided at the division level by the division secretary?
Response: yes, it is.
Concernant
Now, regarding the decisions taken by Sonsaron, and you said that you sent summaries of confessions for him to take decisions. So during the meetings with him, did he ever speak to you about the fact that he himself had to sometimes refer or report to the party center in Phnom Penh and wait for the decisions from the center before deciding on the fate of a prisoner?
Response: it was part of the confidential policy, and I think we were not authorized to be informed. The President, thank you, Mr. Co-Prosecutor, and thank you, Mr. Witness. It is now appropriate time already for today's adjournment. The hearing is adjourned today, and the next session will be resumed on Monday, the 14th of January 2013. Mr. Samsai, your testimony has not yet been concluded. The Chamber would like to hear your testimonies again on Monday next week. The session on Monday will start as usual from 9 a.m. and jury counsel is also invited to come and assist the witness during his testimony next week. Court officer is now instructed to assist the witness during the adjournment and have him return to the courtroom by 9 a.m. on Monday. Security personnel are now instructed to bring all the accused to the detention facility and have them return to the courtroom by 9 a.m. on Monday, except Mr. Ieng Seri, who is now instructed to return to the holding cell where he can observe the proceedings from there. The court is adjourned.